The morning sun hung low in the sky, spilling golden light across the quiet street. My mailbox creaked as I pulled it open, the metal groaning like an old man waking from a nap. I was just about to flip through the bills and advertisements when I heard her voice, smooth and unexpected, drifting over the soft sounds of the neighborhood. "Come here. I have something for you." It was Claire Hartman, my neighbor, 36, a marketing executive by day and an enigmatic figure by night. She stood there in flip-flops and a wrinkled t-shirt, her hair tousled and wild from sleep, the morning sun catching the stray strands like spun gold. Her sunglasses obscured her eyes, but I could still feel their weight on me, a promise of something unspoken. I hesitated, my pulse quickening. I was 32, just a few years into a job that felt more like a rut than a career, and I could feel the weight of my own solitude pressing against me. I had always respected the boundaries of neighborly relations, keeping my distance, but there was something in her tone that shifted the balance. I closed the mailbox slowly, feeling the creak of metal against my fingers, as if the world had paused for a moment. When I stepped toward her, she turned and walked back to her porch, expecting me to follow. I swallowed hard, unsure if this was a simple exchange of goods or something more. A dare wrapped in silk. I could see the small package she held, delicate and wrapped in brown paper, yet it felt heavy with implication. As I approached, the door to her home stood ajar, an invitation and a warning all at once. I felt a rush of heat wash over me, an electric charge that hummed in the air. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that wraps around you like a blanket, almost too intimate. I stepped inside, the coolness of the air conditioning brushing against my skin, contrasting sharply with the warmth of the sun outside. "Here," she said, placing the package on her kitchen counter. She didn't hand it over. Instead, she leaned against the counter, her bare feet pressing into the cool tile. The way she held herself, relaxed yet expectant, made it hard for me to breathe. "Is it for me?" I asked, my voice a mix of curiosity and something deeper, something I couldn't quite name. "Open it," she replied, tilting her head slightly, a playful challenge dancing on her lips. I glanced at her, trying to gauge her expression behind the dark lenses of her sunglasses. There was a moment, a heartbeat, where our eyes locked and the air thickened between us. I stepped closer, drawn in by an invisible thread, as if the distance that had always existed was suddenly too much to bear. With trembling fingers, I unwrapped the package. Inside lay a small, intricately carved wooden box, the kind you might find in a quaint little shop in a faraway town. It was beautiful, and yet it felt like a token of something else, something that hovered just beyond the edges of our lives. "It's stunning," I said, my fingers tracing the delicate carvings. "But why?" "Because I thought you needed a little magic in your life," she replied, her voice softening. "You've been so distant." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, an embarrassment that twisted into something more profound. "I've just been busy," I said, the words sounding hollow even as I spoke them. "Busy or hiding?" she countered, her gaze unwavering. There was a challenge in her tone, an opening. I could feel the weight of her words, heavy with unspoken understanding. For a moment, we stood there, suspended in the quiet of her kitchen. The smell of coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the faint scent of something floral, perhaps the lavender she often used in her home. It was a comforting aroma, yet it felt like a reminder of the boundaries I had maintained, the lines drawn carefully between us. "I'm not hiding," I said, but my voice wavered, betraying the truth. I was hiding from the loneliness that clung to me like a second skin, from the ache of unfulfilled desires that I buried deep beneath layers of routine and expectation. "Are you sure?" she pressed, and I could see the challenge in her posture, the way she leaned forward slightly as if trying to bridge the gap between us. "Because it seems to me that you might be missing out on something really special." I wanted to respond, to push back against the unease blossoming in my chest, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I shifted, glancing around the kitchen, the space filled with sunlight and possibilities, and yet I felt trapped by the weight of her gaze. Maybe, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper, but it's complicated. Complicated is just another word for fear, she replied, her tone gentle but firm. What are you afraid of, Mark? I flinched at the sound of my name on her lips, the way it rolled off her tongue with an intimacy I wasn't prepared for. I don't want to step out of line, I admitted, the honesty surprising even me. I don't want to make things awkward between us. Her laughter was soft, almost musical, and it hung in the air like a sweet perfume. Awkward? Mark, we've danced around each other for too long. You're my neighbor, my friend. I don't want things to be awkward. I want them to be real. Real. The word echoed in my mind, a siren call that both thrilled and terrified me. I had spent too long hiding behind walls, building up defenses that now felt flimsy in the face of her sincerity. What if I don't know how to be real? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Then we figure it out together, she said, stepping closer, the distance between us shrinking until I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. But you have to be willing to take that step. I looked into her eyes, the sunglasses now pushed up onto her head, revealing a depth that stirred something deep within me. The world outside faded away, leaving just the two of us in this moment, suspended in uncertainty, yet brimming with potential. Okay, I said, my breath hitching in my throat. I'll try. Good, she said, a smile breaking across her face, lighting up the room. That's all I ask. But as I stood there, the reality of our lives loomed in the background, a reminder that we were both tethered to our own complexities. Her career, my solitude. The stakes were higher than I wanted to admit, and the weight of that realization settled heavily on my shoulders. I turned back to the box, the intricate carvings telling stories that felt foreign yet familiar. What's your plan for it? I asked, trying to redirect the conversation, to anchor myself in something tangible. Ah, that's the beauty of it, she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. It's for you to decide. It can be a memory box, a treasure chest, or simply something to hold the little moments that matter. It's about what you want it to be. The implications of her words settled over me like a blanket, warm yet suffocating. The idea of collecting memories, of holding on to moments that could slip away, made my heart race. I had always viewed life through the lens of efficiency, checking off boxes and moving forward, but now I was confronted with the idea of holding still, of cherishing what was in front of me. Moments, I echoed, feeling the weight of her gaze once more. What do you mean by that? Moments like this, Mark, she said, her voice dropping to a soft whisper. Like standing here with me, sharing something real. That's what I want to collect. You. I shifted slightly, the heat of her words igniting a spark of something I had long buried. I wanted to step closer, to close the distance that still lingered between us, but fear held me back. What would it mean to collect moments? What if those moments changed everything? Claire, I began, but the words caught in my throat. The fear of losing the fragile connection we were building loomed like a shadow, threatening to swallow me whole. What is it? She asked, stepping closer, her breath a soft whisper against my skin. What are you thinking? I'm just scared, I admitted, the vulnerability of my confession raw and exposed. What if this doesn't work? What if I ruin everything? Then we take a step back, she said, her voice steady and reassuring. But you won't know until you try, and I promise I won't let it ruin anything. I just want to see where this goes. Her words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. I could feel the weight of my own hesitation, the fear of stepping into the unknown, but beneath that fear was the flicker of desire, an urge to lean into the connection we were building. Okay, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but it felt like the most significant declaration I could make. I'll try. And just like that, the tension shifted. The space between us felt charged, alive with possibility. I stepped closer, my heart racing as I reached out, the moment stretching out like a thin thread, fragile yet unbreakable. But just as I was about to close the distance, the sound of her phone vibrating on the counter broke the spell. We both turned to look, the moment shattering into pieces. "Sorry," she said, her expression shifting to one of mild annoyance as she grabbed the device. "It's work. I have to." I nodded, the air between us suddenly heavy with unspoken tension. The reality of her responsibilities crashed back in, a reminder that our lives were still tangled in complexities that couldn't be ignored. "Of course," I said, forcing a smile as I took a step back, the warmth of her presence still lingering like a ghost. "Go ahead." She pressed her lips together, frustration flickering in her eyes as she glanced between me and her phone. "I'll be quick. Just give me a minute." As she stepped away, the space between us felt more significant than ever, a chasm of uncertainty that threatened to pull us apart. I could feel the weight of the moment slipping away, the fragile connection we had forged in the silence now at risk of unraveling. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I had taken a step, but now I felt the ground shifting beneath me. The unspoken agreement hung in the air, a promise that felt both thrilling and terrifying. As she spoke into her phone, I couldn't help but watch her. The way she moved with purpose, her body language shifting as she navigated the conversation. I felt like an observer in my own life, caught between the desire for something real and the fear of what it might cost. When she hung up, she turned back to me, her expression slightly frazzled but still warm. "Sorry about that," she said, running a hand through her hair. "Work has a way of interrupting everything." "It's fine," I replied, though I could feel the distance settling back in. "We were just talking." "Talking?" she echoed, her gaze lingering on me, searching for something beneath the surface. "And what were we saying?" I hesitated, the weight of her question hanging in the air. The fragile connection we had forged felt like it was teetering on the edge of something unsteady. "We were talking about moments," I said finally, the truth spilling out before I could even think. "Yes, moments," she said, her voice softening as she stepped closer once more. "And what do you want to do with those moments?" I took a breath, the world around us fading into the background. "I want to collect them," I said, my voice steadying as I looked into her eyes. "I want to make them real." "Then let's start now," she said, her smile returning, brighter than before. "Let's make this our moment." And in that instant, everything shifted. The air felt charged with possibility, and I could see it reflected in her gaze. A shared understanding that we were stepping into something new, something uncertain, but undeniably real. The distance between us began to close again, the boundaries we had carefully maintained blurring into something more intimate. I felt the weight of her presence, the warmth of her skin as she reached out, her fingers brushing against mine. And as we stood there, the world around us fading away, I knew that this moment was just the beginning, an invitation to explore the depths of our connection and the uncharted territory that lay ahead. In the quiet of her kitchen, beneath the soft glow of morning light, we were just two souls daring to take a step into the unknown, ready to collect the moments that would shape our lives forever.